Hi everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Maverick Mindsets podcast. Today I'm really privileged to be joined by Enrique Navarro, and this is going to be an exciting, inspirational podcast for me because it's an area I know nothing about, but I'm quite intrigued by it. It is really about the subject of psychedelics. Now, as a maverick, and my interest being in the whole mindset of a maverick, I've done quite a few podcasts on what improves people's mindset, how to be resilient, how to overcome challenges, etc., how to set your mind up for success, let's say. I think the subject of psychedelics is very new to me and it's getting a lot of media attention. And if we think about the state of the nation or society now, there's a lot of trauma, a lot of anxiety, mental health we hear a lot about, and I'm really intrigued to find out what psychedelics is all about and how it can help us move us towards the things in life we want, I guess, to pursue this quest to be the best version of ourselves, perhaps. So it's a fascinating subject to me, and I'm really privileged that Enrique's joined us. Enrique's I'm going to hand over to him shortly, and he'll do a bit more of an introduction. But just to touch on his experience and who he is, he defines himself as a medicine man. He's healed over 14,000 people globally, specializing in helping people to break down those barriers and challenges using psychedelics, and a whole. When I've had some conversations, obviously previous to interviewing him today, it's been very engaging for me to understand how psychedelics work and where they fit really in modern society. And we're going to talk about various things around that. So for all the listeners, I think there's going to be some really interesting takeaways on a subject you may know things about or you may not. So welcome, Enrique. Also, we've got Ema Korabska joining us. Now, she is a creative millennial. And the reason I've asked Ema to join today is to give a perspective to the younger audience. And she's had her own personal experience with psychedelics. So to get her insight, I thought would be really valuable. And she's going to be diving into the conversation with Enrique and myself to add some value and some knowledge and personal thoughts on that. So welcome to both of you. So Enrique, would you just give us just a little bit of background on your knowledge and experience, just to kind of flesh out more on what I've said already?
Yeah, well, thank you to invite me over. It's a pleasure to be with you. And also to see my sister Em, that she was with me a year ago, about, and she had experience. So yeah, my name, as you know, is Enrique Navarro, and I, as you told before, serving the medicine to several people, also to few famous actors in Europe, and they even helping them a lot. I crossed through the medicine because I was struggling after my divorce, and I went into the high depression. Then I started using cocaine in large quantities, and I went deeper in the depression till I have the sensation to have a suicide thoughts start going on in my mind. I was trying to suicide with large amounts of cocaine injecting into the veins, but it never happens. So then afterwards in Marbella, I meet a friend. He says, Kike, you are a good person. It seems to be that you deserve to live. Why you don't try medicine that it might heal you? And I asked him what it's all about. And he says, oh, it's a toad from Mexico. It has in their glands, it has a compound that it calls Bufo Alvarius, and it has 21 different tryptamines. Wow. And I was like, okay, let's try. I didn't care anything in my life. So after 2 months, I got the medicine from Octavio Retin, and it was the most profound and the most beautiful experience ever in my life. it was like morning again. It was so intense. And then I started have dreams for about 3 months, very lucid dreams with Indians in caves in the desert, and I didn't know what to do with them. So I started doing more, getting more into the spirituality. And somebody told me, why you don't go with tarot? And I says, well, yeah, tarot, I don't know if it's true or not. And he says, try it out. So I went with Lourdes in Spain. She's a quite recognized tarot reader. And she was throwing the cards and they says, Kike, you need to follow your dreams. And I was like, what the hell is that? Follow my dreams. I am in the desert with Indians in the caves, smoking the bufo. And then I switch on my mind. I says, okay, I buy a ticket. I go to Mexico and I go to the desert to meet where the toad comes from. So I traveled there. I went into the Seri tribe in Sonora. Then I reached the Abuelo Pancho, that is one of the elders of the tribe. I knocked his door and he opened it to me and he told me, I told him, hey, look, I come to meet the toad in person and to meet the tribe. And he looked at me and says, yeah, we were expecting you. And I was like, all my dreams start to manifestate in a way. So the first thing he told me is you're gonna be trained, and you're gonna be trained on the caves in the desert with the toad medicine. And it was amazing. It was my dreams coming through. And then we have the practices for a couple of weeks. And it was strange because it was in February, and the toad medicine, the toads, they don't come out because they live 9 months on the ground, and then in the monsoon season, that is the raining season in the desert, they come out. And suddenly I was on the last day receiving the blessings and the chantings, and suddenly some kids start screaming, "Oh, a toad, a toad!" And well, we thought it was another type of toad. And suddenly they knock the door, and they says, "Abuelo Pancho," and it was a Bufo Alvarius. So Abuelo Pancho told me, look, this is incredible because if February is impossible, they come out. You are here, and this is another sign that you need to be the carrier of this medicine. So it was so beautiful, so amazing. But then I came back to Europe with a little bit of medicine, and I started giving to my friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot of fears to leave my job and then start doing this job because I didn't know if I would have enough people to serve and enough people to also to survive and to pay out my checks and everything else. And then I have a friend also in Marbella that he was a Babalu. They are spiritual people. They are in Cuba, and they read things and so on. I says, Kike, you have already the signs, you have already the dreams, go for it, lose the fear. And I says, okay. So I quit my job, and then I start practicing the medicine. But right before I went to Mexico, I was talking with someone in Holland. I says, okay, Kike, get the blessings of the Indians, get the medicine, and when you come back, I will bring you to Holland, and then we will have ceremonies here. So I wrote her, I says, look, I'm ready. And then I went to Holland. I served 7 people, and it was a Dutch guy down there. He likes my work. So after 2 weeks, suddenly an Italian girl contacted me and says, Kike, the guy was in Holland with you, the Dutch guy, remember him? I says, yeah. He wants you to come and work in our healing center in Ibiza. And I says, okay, I will do it. So we went in interview. She asked me some ethical things, and then she likes me and says, come over. So I was serving the medicine, and then suddenly one day she told me, hey, Kike, tomorrow we have a very famous actor. And I says, you need to treat him perfectly. I said, I treat everyone the same, so it's okay. So Nacho Vidal, that is one of the most porno famous actor in Spain, he approached me.
You told me this story. Very good.
Yeah, yeah. And the guy, he was with the like this black. I says, Kike, I cannot stop using cocaine. I wake up in the mornings. I inject my pennies. I take Viagra. I do some coke, and then I start filming. Then I finish the filming. I go back home. Then I call the dealer, ask for more coke, and then call hookers. And I says, what is this loop? He says, yeah, this is the loop I have, and I want to heal it. I says, okay, let's do it. So I served him once the medicine and he went the process, but I felt he needed more. So we went to the second shot and he was struggling and like going crazy into the floor. And we have all the set and setting perfectly done. And then he left. After a week, he called me and says, Kike, what you give me? I says, why? I feel totally different. I want to quit to the porno industry. I want to heal everyone else. I don't want to touch cocaine. I don't want to do anything else that I was doing on the past.
Wow. And
That was the float of my
Enrique,
life.
just a quick one on that. So
Yeah.
when you first took the medicine, did you instantly move away from your addiction to cocaine, or was it a process? Because it sounds quite seismic in terms of one day you were an addict, if you like, then your experience just took you completely on that new journey.
I totally reborn. So when I reborn, I learned the self-love.
Yeah.
And what I was doing, it was destructive thing. So I didn't want to touch her any longer. And this is the last time I was
Wow.
touching the cocaine ever in my life.
And you've never since had a desire to go back to that place.
No, it was so dark. It was so dark.
Fascinating. And then obviously on your journey, you started treating some actors, you went out to Ibiza, and then since then, you've just built really a very profound business on helping treating people.
Yeah, yeah, it was transformative for me because it was my dream and uh, it was so much energy that I have in the beginning. I was traveling every week to, first of all, to Holland, then to Ibiza, and then Nacho told me, I have a lot of clients for you, also in the industry, porno industry, also in the TV industry. So I start every week going to Barcelona. I was going to Madrid. I was going to Spain, and then it was like a snowball. I was like traveling everywhere, and people contact me everywhere. Of course, everybody says, "Wow, you have an amazing job." And in the beginning, it was amazing, because traveling to different parts in the world and meet new people and interesting people, it was such a beautiful thing. But of course, after 6, 7 years of traveling, I was getting tired.
Mm.
But it was a lot of energy that I think the first 9 years I was traveling weekly to different destinations.
Yeah. Wow. And one of the things you talked about previously was this definition of medicine versus drugs. Because I guess in my simple terms, if I feel ill, I'll go to a doctor. They'll give me some kind of drug. Modern medicine is pharmaceutically driven, isn't it? With big pharma companies, etc. Be it if you've got a headache or any kind of ailment. But you've got a philosophy about medicine versus drugs. Can you just explain that? Because I thought that was really interesting when we first discussed it.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of people call drugs to LSD, they call drugs to psilocybin, they call drugs to ayahuasca, even is forbidden in many countries. But there is two types of drugs on my point of view. We have, for example, the low vibe drugs, that is alcohol, and this is allowed everywhere in the world. And
Yeah.
it's one of the worst drugs that we have in society.
And it's
Then
legal.
we have cocaine, we have heroin, then we have methamphetamine. There are all these drugs, right? And I categorize myself as a medicine, LSD, psilocybin, ayahuasca, and Bufo Alvarius. Why? Because those drugs are not harming you as alcohol does, as heroin does,
Yeah.
or as cocaine does, you know?
They're not as addictive. They're not proven to be addictive.
Exactly, yeah. You can have 10 times LSD and maybe you will not get addicted. It's a beautiful experience, but you don't want to do it afterwards. The next day, you don't feel anxiety or you don't feel the necessity to do it. In case the other way around, with people with problems with heroin, if they don't have the drug, they have very difficult times.
Yeah,
And
withdrawal.
I also having healed many people with heroin. Heroin is amazing. Bufo Alvarius is amazing for the heroin because after giving the medicine to the people, they stop having the shaking and the anxiety.
Yeah.
So the treatments, of course, the treatments with heroin people is a little different approach. When the people they have cocaine addiction or alcohol addiction, or the people they just want to discover the highest spirituality in them.
Suppose you can differentiate between what you'd call medicine or a drug, and something else we talked about was there's a very ancient history around psychedelics, which I've read a reasonable amount on, and I'm by no means an expert, but it is a natural healing mechanism that's been around for centuries, and it's only in recent years pharmaceutical drugs have come along to give us other remedies, let's say. But the natural history of psychedelics is quite significant, Enrique, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's been proved. The Egyptians had the acacia, and they were doing a brew, not as ayahuasca like in South America, but it was also like spiritual things that they were practicing in a way. And the oldest one is the mushrooms, no, the psilocybin, that it was everywhere in the world. You can find magic mushrooms in a way. So a lot of ancient civilizations they were using as a remedy.
Yeah. No, fascinating. And obviously, just to the listeners, within the show notes, you'll find a lot of detail. I put quite a bit and a link, obviously, to Enrique's details as well. So you can find out more for all the listeners who want to explore more. But in terms of the different types of psychedelics, can you just explain top line about what are those different types and also what the benefits are?
Yeah, I mean, for example, now on these days, it's been proved, like, for example, psilocybin, it helps a lot of people for depression, for anxiety. Even ketamine is now getting also for people that they have depression. LSD it was used by, I don't know, I don't remember the psychiatric from Czech Republic. Do you remember, Emma? He's on the Bufo Alvarius movie. Well, whatever. The guy is very famous. Bufo Alvarius movie made in the Czech Republic and Stalingrad. He is one of the psychotherapists that they were emigrated to the United States, and he had the license when the LSD was forgiven on the 60s. He had the license to do some therapies with people with LSD, and it was amazing results. So it's variations that the people. I mean, even in the Congress years ago, I supposedly the people they were also were more connected with nature and were more connected with the plant medicine. That in these days, even ayahuasca and many other natural medicines, they can help a lot of people around the world. I don't know if you know Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson, if you do research on the internet, was sick using opioids. And suddenly he got the Bufo Alvarius, and now he started getting back on track. He started doing movies, and now he's out of the addiction and totally perfect, you know.
And for all the novices listening, what are the ways you get involved in this in experience? I mean, you've got to be able to make a decision on what to take, and then my understanding is most of the experiences surround a ceremony. Yeah, can you just tell us a bit about how people experience psychedelics?
Well, one of the first steps that we need to consider it in any experience, and mostly more in the Bufo Alvarius or the 5-MeO DMT, we need to have some protocols because on those days, a lot of people start serving. They got the call, they have the medicine, and then suddenly they have the Messias syndrome, and they start just serving the medicine without any preparation. And it's so delicate medicine that the people needs to go through an interview to see all the medical issues. Because, for example, people taking antidepressives, triphasic antidepressives, they cannot take the medicine because they can go in a serotonin syndrome and they can die.
Okay.
So there is a lot of things that it needs to be very careful how we interview the people and then decide which is the dose and which is the amount of medicine that they can have.
So I guess what you're saying, it all depends from a person's point of view. If they're already on prescription drugs of some nature, or they're already got some kind of addiction, you just need to be very mindful of how you'd allow them to take the psychedelics.
Yeah, for example, people they are overage and they are using cocaine. They need to stop 7 days before, and they need to try to rest as much as they can. So the stress of the body is not so strong, because it's been also experiences that people, they have took 2 or 3 days in advance cocaine, and then they come to the Bufo Alvarius, and there is people that have died from it.
Yeah.
So it needs to be a special preparation for the experiencing somehow.
Yeah. And I suppose it's like any experiences, there's always, that you've got to approach it, with an open mind, but also be cognizant of the fact that there are dangers. And how does someone decide which practitioner to work with?
I think it's important to choose a practitioner that has a lot of experience, also practitioner that they follow some protocols, and also to question the practitioner how it's going to be and how it's going to be the set and setting, because you need to have a special set and setting.
Yeah.
And then also you need to have all the pre-preparation and the safety security questions to avoid any kind of accidents.
Sure. And they're never on their own while they're having this experience. They are they would be with someone like yourself to guide them and be there with them.
Of course, because after few years, after all the experiences, I noticed that some people stop breathing. So the first time I had that experience, we was in Holland. It was with a girl, a yoga teacher, that I served her the medicine. Then she come back and she says, Kika, I want to go again because I missed something. I need to really release something. So I went back, give her again. And suddenly in the process, I saw that she started getting blue here and blue the lips and the fingertips. So thanks to God, it was a paramedic in that day. And then he did the rescue mode. And this is when I learned that the people also can stop breathing for a couple minutes, and then how to bring them back.
Yeah.
And this is when I went to Red Cross and take a course how to reanimate people in a way in the special cases when they stop breathing in the way.
Okay, and it's interesting, and one of the things I've thought a lot about is within the Maverick Mindsets podcast is entrepreneurs, business people, high achievers, people who are very driven, let's say, in terms of unlocking those elements of the mind that take you forward. And as human beings, we've all got some form of trauma to larger or lesser extent. Same with anxiety, same with mental blockers, if you like, obstacles in our mind that hold us back. Is probably a good time to bring Ema in, really. Where does the kind of ego fit into the process of healing, and how would one utilize psychedelics to fine-tune your mindset or improve it? That's an area I'm really interested in to try and understand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in that specific topic, what I would say is that there's definitely a connection between this spiritual ego and the entrepreneur ego, where they kind of overlap, where just the same as his business, you think that because you're in this high position, that kind of no one can be above you, and that you start to eventually lead with ego rather than integrity. Right. And it's the same with spirituality, except that spirituality has a specific term, which is happening now, unfortunately, a lot nowadays, which is actually called spiritual bypassing.
Okay.
So spiritual bypassing really is almost like a habit or an excuse of using this rising trend, when in reality, it's not actually a trend. It's almost like a way of being. It shouldn't be seen as a trend, spirituality in general. And we use the spiritual practices to avoid dealing with unresolved emotions or psychological wounds, right? So this is what's been happening. This is really where the ego comes in, because when you become too attached to this whole idea of spirituality without actually fully living by it day by day and understanding the full concept of it, you kind of have this God complex. You seem to think that you're better than everyone else because you're spiritual, right? But spirituality, again, I have to emphasize, because it's same like with any other trend, it's not a trend. Like it's a way of being. It's a way of truly believing and committing to that higher emotional intelligence. So really, a way to overcome spiritual bypassing, so you don't fall in that hole, is to educate yourself as much as possible and practice techniques that improve your emotional intelligence, and then improve taking better actions for yourself. If you take better actions that are more conscious, you are able to serve yourself better, but also serve others more authentically, right? Without making conscious actions, you can't be authentic and true to yourself, right? So that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, no, well, and I suppose in my experience, there's this, and I've written about this in my book, about the law of attraction. Is when you're in that perfect karmic state, for example, you tend to attract the right things towards you, rather than if you're authentic to yourself, you start to attract that, and through reasons of how the human mind operates, we're attracted to things that we feel are authentic and real. And so I suppose the ego piece is letting go of that ego allows you to get into that state where you attract the right things towards you, because you're the real person, you're the real deal.
In a more holistic manner, basically, where you're not separating the mind and the body. And ego as well, in general, it's a filter, right? It's not actually you. So it's really understanding that. And in general, in spirituality, there's no such thing as an ego. If you're truly spiritual, you have no ego.
No.
There's no ego, So I think a lot of people forget about that part as well.
Yeah. Which I guess the people that, and it probably happens late in people's later years in life, because you've been through knowledge and experience and you've learned who you are, and that takes a long time to do for most people. For all of us, it's a constant journey, I guess. But the ability, if we look at all the very successful people we know in our own orbits, generally they're very at ease with themselves, and generally they've got an air of they've got nothing to prove. And that to me is how I'd kind of crystallize that thought in my mind. I guess one of the things is do people generally come to you, Enrique, with I've got this problem I want to solve, or do they come to you with I really want to expand and get better at who I am in whatever area? Do they? What's the kind of categories of people that come towards you?
Well, something is strange. I don't know if you know the book of Kybalion.
Ah, yes, I love it. Yes.
Okay,
I
that calls the
don't.
7,000.
Vale, I'm
Yeah, the
gonna link it in
Kybalion.
the show notes. Yeah.
It's a beautiful book, and it's an Asian book. It's from Egyptian. It was from Todd, and he talks about the house of vibration. No, so he says whatever is inside is whatever is outside. So in the beginning of my journey, it was strange because I was attracting a lot of people with drug problems. But then after the time, when I switched all these patterns and I left the medicine, it was strange because then it was just people that they have emotional things, people even that they just want to discover spirituality, or people with depression problems. So it was a lot of different type of approach, but in the beginning it was more people with addictions, and then start switching to people with problems with anxiety, people with depression, sometimes again with people with misuse of different type of drugs.
Mm.
But in general, all kind of people, no? Also people without any knowledge. Sometimes people, oh, I want to come to the ceremony, but I'm afraid because I can die and so on. I says, no, no, I mean, I calm them down. And after people, they never before they have any experience with psychedelics, they just come to the strongest medicine in planet Earth. And then wow, it's amazing, how they can people change, and also how the people appreciate so much what I have done to them, not because of me, because the medicine. I try to keep always humble, and sometimes people are, hey, come maestro, maestro, and says, no, I'm not your teacher, I am your student, and I am your teacher at the same time, so I'm learning from you and you learn from me. I am not more than you, I'm not more than less than you, I'm just a human being.
Yeah.
But it's amazing, no? How sometimes I am in my Facebook and suddenly receive a message. Kiki, I had the medicine from you 4 years ago. I'm from Lithuania. Now I'm living in Los Angeles. I stopped my addiction, and now I'm doing meditation courses and speaking about the spirituality and so on. And it's so beautiful, not to see all the feedbacks. If I would tell you all the feedbacks and all the what the people change and what the people heal, I keep been talking to you 24 hours about it, no?
Yes, very, very profound, and I guess you in one way, as humans, there's no perfect human, Enrique. Everyone's got some baggage, let's say, you've got to carry about, and it's fascinating how psychedelics can unlock your mind to move through those challenges and barriers.
I
Yeah,
will,
yes.
I will add as well, talking about these challenges and barriers, and also coming back to depression, because we mentioned depression a few times now, and addictions as well, which is obviously it's a big issue. But I will also say that the Bufo Alvarius and ayahuasca, psychedelics in general, it's not just for people that are dealing with anxiety or depression or addictions, but it is also for people that are, let's say, they have less addictive tendencies, because some people are more addictive or more prone to addiction than others, through biological reasons and many other. So in my case, I've not had this addictive personality type, but I did definitely fall into kind of the victim mentality for many, many years, and had my own destructive patterns, which then affected those around me, right? So a destructive pattern can be being explosive, being reactive, leading with anger, right? Or reacting with this anger, right? Or kind of falling back into this victim mentality where, because of this and this that happened to me that should have never happened, right? So in my case, there was a lot of unresolved trauma that happened in my most vulnerable years, as early as 8 years old. And if you don't go back to that pain and to that moment and address it, it's always going to be there, right? It's almost like this analogy of the elephant in the room. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. So it doesn't matter how many times you walk past that elephant, if you're not going to face it and address it and accept it and acknowledge it, that it's there, I see you, like it's just going to keep knocking and knocking on your soul, and it gets louder and louder as you carry on keeping this trauma in your body. As Dr. Gabor Mate says, he's a very famous psychiatrist right now. I'm sure Enrique, you've heard of him. I'm going to paraphrase it now a little bit. But so it's not what happens to you, it's what happens as a result. It's what happens inside of you as a result of what happened to you. So in other words, you can go through the same trauma as I am going through, seeing the exactly same thing. Let's say your parent being killed in a car crash, but because of how you're psychologically wired and your nervous system as well, you're going to take that trauma differently than I am. I might take it 10 times as extreme because I am naturally sensitive, very, very sensitive person. So that's really what it is. And with the help of psychedelics, so in the case when I did it with Enrique, there was definitely really deep, deep wounds that even with the help of many techniques I was using, including typical therapy sessions, even with these things, I knew that I needed something stronger and faster to help me heal faster. So that's really where Enrique came in and where Bufo Alvarius came in, because I knew that these wounds were so deep and so painful that I needed this medicine to just finally allow me to let go. So it's been a journey. I can't say that it's just because I did the medicine, I did one thing only, and then now I'm this awakened person that's healed every single trigger and all my wounds and all my traumas. It's been a process. It's been 2 years, 3 years nearly of like working on myself emotionally to get to a stage where I can now proudly say that I feel unstoppable. And that's not ego. That's just genuinely like, wow, like I really know my value and I believe in myself. And I've walked through the fire literally, and I've come out of it healthy and fine. So I know I have enough of a power to then lead in a healthy way others, right? But you can't get to that stage if you don't go through every single discomfort and you literally make discomfort your best friend, right?
I mean, that's a really profound story, and thanks for sharing that, because it's a very personal thing, and it just shows how, as humans, how delicate we all can be. And so in your case, then the psychedelics just helped you unlock those problems and let go of them, as you said.
Yeah, quite literally. Like it allowed me, this is now on another topic slightly, but I'm not going to talk about it for too long. So this huge topic on the neurodivergent people. ADHD was one of the things that I was kind of labeled by from people close to me. And I never really liked labels. Labels in generally is not the right way to address people, because no one likes to be labeled, right? We are a whole, we are everything and more the day we are born. So no one should be labeled as one particular thing. So with this ADHD whole topic, one of my destructive patterns, let's say, is that I could never, ever stay still. Like my soul never felt like it could ever truly be in peace, like I could actually breathe. So that was one of the many things that the medicine gave me, is that it allowed me to finally just be really with myself and accept me for me, and completely like have an entire reset neurologically as well. There's a certain thing as well through neuroscience that happens in your brain during this medicine, which I'm not the expert at, but maybe Enrique can explain that. So it allowed me to kind of like almost reset my neurons during my brain and go back to those connections that were disconnected as a child, go back to it, and then allow me to kind of feel my emotions, but in my own terms this time. So this whole crazy hyperactive thing that I had before completely stopped. It's almost like it allowed me to finally breathe, which then allowed me to stop running on a machine like a hamster. When you see a hamster running, that's what it really felt like most of my life, because I didn't feel safe enough in myself, mainly, to stop, to just take a break and have the chance to be, like Enrique said earlier, to be reborn again. So this is how powerful this medicine can be if you, of course, take it in the right environment, with professionals, and following all the protocols that you should.
And just touching on that, in terms of the safety around it, is how do you look at, how do you de-risk the experience? Because obviously you've got to do it in a very safe environment.
Yeah, so someone like Enrique will be able to provide exactly that. He has also other people that help him, of course, to manage everything. And one of the most important parts is the 2 weeks in advance preparation before. So that includes things like not smoking, not drinking, not taking other drugs, of course. For me, that was super easy because, as I mentioned earlier, I've never been an addictive person. But I can imagine this is more of a challenge for those that do have more of addictive personalities. But all I can say to those type of people is that it is the best thing you can ever do and invest in yourself. So, and I'm speaking from personal experience. If you can manage to hold on to have this break from everything for 1 week or 2 weeks, it is the best investment you can ever make into yourself, for yourself. Yeah.
Interesting. One thing, that term I've heard quite a few times, Enrique, is this Messiah syndrome, and I just wonder what exactly is Messiah syndrome.
Well, some people, not all of them, we have ego. Everybody has an ego, no? Mostly after medicine, many people release that we are gods and we are all gods, right? But then some people, that spiritual ego goes inflated so much that they believe that they know more. So they start treating people. I have a lot of experience with people I served in the medicine to them. They were very humble on the beginning, and then I had talks with them afterwards because I do a follow-up. And they says, yeah, Kike, but I know that, and I know that, and I know that, and you feel the ego a little bit more bigger than when they came humble and they come breakable in a way that I says, wow, the guy changed a lot. When he came to me, he was all inside of him, and he was not so expressive. And then afterwards, there's people that they believe that they know everything. Of course, we give so much information, and it gives so much pleasure to know that you are God and everybody's God. But nobody, at the end of the day, if you are God and I am God, we are the same. And they lost that track, and that's one of the most sadly things that I can notice. I hear also people that they start serving the medicine and they try to manipulate others because they have the power of the medicine. It's such a horrible thing, that you cannot manipulate everyone. I see people that they get open so much, and they also, when I serve them medicine to them, they believe I am like a God and I know everything. And sometimes they do questions to myself that I says, look, I don't know the answer, and I don't want to lie you. And also it will be a manipulation to tell something that I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's important to keep humble, not to keep humble and do it really from the heart.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it could be like prostitution also,
Yeah. No,
Actually, sorry, Rick, just because I want to mention this one example that actually happened to a friend of mine. It's very important, especially with younger generation nowadays, is to be really, really sure that you check on the facilitator of the medicine to check the reputation, to check who he's healed. The more people he's healed, the better, really, because you can be sure that you're in safer hands. The reason why I say that is because there are cases now, unfortunately, just like with any power, superpower, you can use it for good, you can use it for bad, right? In any industry, right? So in this industry, unfortunately, in spirituality in general, in this space, as Enrique mentioned, there are people that use it to manipulate the weaker ones. Obviously, people that come to these kind of spaces in first place are because they're struggling with something. And they're in a vulnerable space already. So that is a great opportunity for narcissistic personalities, for example, that would love to use and abuse that, right? another big reason why you don't, you should give yourself enough of a respect to understand that you need to go that extra mile to make sure that whoever you're going to, you're in the safe hands. Because the last thing you want to do, on top of all your wounds, is to give yourself more trauma, right?
Yeah. No, it's good. It's very good advice. And like you say, that there will be vulnerable people who they're in an easy position to be manipulated. So you've got to be very careful. And just picking up, Enrique, on something you were just talking about in terms of, none of us have all the answers. And I suppose it's a bit like even with psychedelics is everybody's on a journey of self-discovery, and everyone's journey is unique to them, and which means the results are unique to them. I suppose good and bad, and how far they can take it, or what they can actually get out of it in a positive, maybe a negative way. And what's Nirvana state? Because that's another term I've heard.
Well, Nirvana states you can hear about in the monks that they practice for years, silence, meditation, and then they can reach those stages of total nirvana. But in some way, a lot of people looking for spirituality, because I'm going to tell you something very important that I lost. I forgot to tell you. The only way that we can experience this is first of all, the near experience, dying experience, is when you are driving and you're going to crash and then you get hurt, and then the brain automatically liberates a lot of 5-MeO-DMT. And then you see the light and you see God. And this is when the people say, wow, I was there. But then the people, they keep alive, and they can tell the experience as told medicine is. The other way is being in the chamber, in the black chamber for 30 days. But this is very hard to handle it, because who can be on the dark, insulated for 30 days? It's kind of hard. A lot of people in Thailand, there is many retreats around the world, they do this treatment, but not too many people can handle it so long. After the 7 days, they quit and they cannot experience it. And the shortcut is the shortcut that the medicine gives you. It's exactly the same, but in one shot. Once I was in Facebook and somebody post about the dark chamber, and one teacher told into the chat, what for? If we have the Bufo Alvarius, why you want to go to the 30 days retreat center, But some people, they don't want to use any kind of external things to explore.
To clarify, Enrique, you're talking about this, the chemical, right, that naturally gets released in our brain, which is called DMT. As far as I know, based on my research anyway, that chemical only gets released when we are born and when we die, right?
Well, we have it when we're born. Supposedly, when the spirit comes into the body, we have a big release. Then we have every night, when we have very lucid dreams, we have release of the pineal gland, a little bit of DMT. That's the dreams, that's the lucid dreams. And then when we take the medicine, and then when we die,
Interesting.
I'm a little bit afraid, because I have done so much the medicine. I don't know if when I'm gonna die, I'm gonna experience the same. So I don't know. We'll see.
And I suppose, Enrique, the mind is such a complex and intriguing organ in a way, and we're still learning more about it, and it's always fascinating to me to realize there's so much more to learn. And if you look as an individual, there's so much to learn about ourselves, isn't it? And if psychedelics can fast track that in some way to open up, I suppose, pathways of understanding their own minds, then it can only be a good thing if it gives us more self-knowledge.
Yeah, well, I'm also, it's like I'm trying to explain to the people sometimes what is this, and we are like a computer and we have many programs. And then sometimes, with Windows, you need to do the scan disk. So you release programs.
Yeah.
and then it gets new. This is the same, every time I feel that every time the people get the experience, it's like a reboot, like resetting. So
Yeah.
all
Setting up.
this backpack, a lot of people tell me after the experience, they says, Kike, it's like I feel like 20 kilos less. I feel like newborn, and I feel like a brand new.
Mm.
And it's so beautiful to listen to all of this, because the medicine, what it does, we have a part in the brain that it calls the amygdala, where it's all the traumatic things are living there, and the medicine goes there. They relieve those episodes, then they disconnect those neurons, and they create a new connections.
Mm.
So it's like getting back again the hard disk clean and nice.
Yeah.
Creates new neural pathways, right?
Sorry.
Creates new neural pathways, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Chris, thousands. Every time we have psychedelics like LSD or psilocybin, there's new connections, new neural connections
Yeah.
done.
No, it
Also, coming back to the analogy of the computer, I think it's the great analogy, because if we look at it, then we can also see as it's a typical thing, right? Sometimes we get viruses into our computers. So you can look at trauma as viruses. And until you don't get rid of it, that computer will never, ever function properly.
Yeah, sure. No, it's a good metaphor for sure. And look, Enrique, it's been a fascinating discussion. I could talk about it for hours. There's a part two to this to understand it more. But to you as an individual, you're very interesting to me. And what kind of books, movies, or podcasts do you watch? Is there anything that inspires you? What do you do kind of away from work that helps you to expand yourself?
Well, I have read many books, and there is a lot of books about spirituality. But for example, if you want to read a good book about the Bufo Alvarius, there is one book that it calls The Cryptamine Palace
Okay.
from James Orr.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. He has also some videos in YouTube, and the guy talks about what are the different type of drugs, what is calling drugs, what is calling psychedelics or medicines, and that's a beautiful book. But also is a lot of beautiful documentaries that I don't know if it will be possible in the podcast that I can leave like 3 or 4 links. One for the people they want to contact me and they want to learn how to work with the medicine, or people they had been in a bad experience or they cannot reintegrate. I will also help them in a way, and also for people they want to heal any depression or any addictions, they can come to me, and I will love to help them in a way.
We'll definitely put that in the show notes as well. So for anyone listening and watching, they can delve into that and find out those details. Thank you, Enrique. And what's the worst or best advice you've ever received?
The worst advice I ever received. Oh my God, that's a hard question. Advices. Yeah, well, I was advised a long time ago to practice more, to learn much more about the medicine. And this is when, because in the first years, I was like doing the medicine, but at the same time, I was a beginner, amateur. And I was like, sometimes, I overdose like twice people. Then I could see how dangerous it is to overdose also with this medicine,
Yeah.
because mostly there is a percentage of people that after medicine, if you overdose them and you don't have the reintegration tools, they can have a lack of sleep for days. And imagine 24 hours is okay. 48 hours without sleeping, it comes annoying. And then after that, it can come psychosis. So I have now, after all the research and after all these years, I believe that now I know that how much medicine I need to serve, and also if some people are more sensible, some people are less sensible, I can measure, and in the way if they go struggling with the sleep, lack of sleep, that is one of the biggest problems that is common. I know how to reintegrate them in a way with some different things like melatonin and CBD and ashwagandha and some things that they will take and make them calm down and then sleep, and then it's totally different thing, you know. So that was one of the advices I had on my beginning of career, you know, like research, study, and practice in the best way you can.
Sure. Thank you. And what do you see the future of psychedelics are then? Are they going to develop, or are they so ancient and tested and they're just going to get more understood and become more mainstream in society?
Well, you know, something is strange because, for example, in the United States now, they banned a lot of psychedelics in the 60s, and now they start opening up. So one of my beliefs is that, of course, it's the pharma industry that they are not wanted to, the people knows about these medicines because they want to keep us all asleep. That's why the alcohol is allowed, and they can control us more.
Yeah.
But in the way, I believe that the medicine are going to be open up. In some countries in the European Union is banned, the 5-MeO and DMT and the Bufo. In some countries not. But for example, DMT that we produce every night and we produce all the time, they're banned in many countries in the European Union. And it's illogic, no? It's something that we produce, something that is everywhere in the plants. Even in the salads that you eat is the DMT. The only thing is we have an enzyme that when we eat the salad and the DMT, we have some enzymes, they eat these enzymes. And then that's why in the ayahuasca, we have two plants. One is the inhibitors and the other one is the DMT. When the inhibitors and DMT goes inside into the body, the enzymes goes away, and then the DMT can go through the brain stream.
Okay. Look, it's been a fascinating conversation, Enrique. Thank you very much. I mean, for me as a novice, it just shows there's so much more to learn, but it will show that there's a big area of understanding in psychedelics that's becoming more mainstream, and how it can be used to help us. I see it as something that is another tool in our armory, if you like, or toolbox, which allows us to explore how to make ourselves better or heal in many ways, and understanding that kind of ego versus integrity. And you know, I like when you talked about being humble in all of these experiences. And then Ema was talking about spiritual bypassing and this Messiah syndrome. There's so many areas to this that make you want to stop and think. So I really value your time today. Appreciate it. Thanks to Ema as well for putting her personal experience in and for opening up. It's been a fascinating hour or so, and the show notes we'll try and pack it full of as much detail as we can, because there's quite a lot of knowledge we want to pass on there. And thank you very much.
Yeah, Rick, I have the last question. You know, I would like to ask you, when you have the call to do this medicine, I would really love to serve the medicine maybe in the future.
Yeah. Well, that you know, in terms of the Maverick Mindsets, is anything that helps people improve and deal with any challenges to make themselves better and drive more to what they do want, as opposed to moving towards what they don't want, is a fascinating area for me. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Then we can do a podcast about yourself.
Yeah, I'll be asking you, Rick.
Maybe record it. How about that?
Yeah, of course.